We're starting.
Alright guys, welcome to this week's episode of Den of the Silver Fox. I'm your host Cagney, and this is about everything geek and pop culture. Today with me I have Andy returning.
Hey guys.
Lennon.
Hello.
And Tor.
Solid.
And this week we're going to be talking about legendary cryptids and monsters and that sort of thing. I guess there's a lot of people have different ways that they talking about them, like legendary monsters, folklore, cryptids, yeah, like whatever you want to call them. But, I think we can all agree that they've been around since the beginning of man. You know, whether it's trying to explain away, I don't know, different things that they might not know about, or like an ignorance kind of thing back in the, early man. What do you guys think?
Scare your children into acting right.
Oh,
Most of them.
I think that's what the Brothers Grimm originally was, right? Like stories to keep children out of the woods and away from things they shouldn't be doing or talking about, and keep them at home.
Yeah.
But with cryptids,
to an
it's
extent.
more like something that could have existed and people have seen, adults have seen, like...
First-hand accounts.
Yeah. Like Bigfoot.
Yeah.
The original UFO.
Yeah.
People talk about it for years now. We can all agree, like things like, Bigfoot, I guess...
Like
Chupacabra.
Yeah, Loch Ness Monster. Those have been around for, hundreds of years now.
Slender Man.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here.
I guess the first two I want to talk about, though, that I was looking into is kind of bridge the gap, is the ones that are more in popular culture nowadays. The first one would be the Cambion, or Cambion, however you want to say it, which is the half demon, half human. And obviously the first one that comes to mind, for me at least, would be Hellboy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, in popular culture nowadays, at least.
I've never heard that term, though, and I wonder if Cambion is the original, because Tiefling is like the same thing.
Right,
and it makes me wonder where that term came from.
I think it's more of an old school thing, because, you got to think, they never really call him anything specific, but just, half man, half demon.
Yeah.
But the fact that there is a term makes sense.
Is he half man, though?
He's the son of, his father was the demon, his mom was a human.
She was a human?
She was a human. She was a nun.
What?
Yeah, she was a nun.
I do not remember that part.
Man, plot twist.
Yeah, plot twist.
Got all that
she was a bad
temptation.
one.
Yeah. Yep, because she was like, in her youth, she was wild and crazy, and then she, got with the demon daddy, and then was like,
Oops.
no!
Accidentally fucked a devil.
Yeah, it's like, no, I need to make this right, get myself to the Lord.
Too
And
late.
then, yeah, she still got. But,
Well,
Surprise, Capang.
I
yeah.
feel like that kind of thing, they should usually die in childbirth if they're giving birth to a devil child.
I think there was some magical element, if I remember right. It's been a while since I've read the first volume and stuff, but I'm trying to think of another popular one. Who's played Devil May Cry?
Oh, talking about like Dante and Virgil?
Yeah, they're the same thing. Half demon, half human.
Ugh.
You know, what?
Now, I'm a big anti-Japanese stylized. I prefer the modern, Blazinski style heroes. Where they're not super handsome. I don't want my hero to be this 12-year-old girl looking motherfucker with long hair and big old eyes, and he's got he looks like he weighs $110 soaking wet, whatever. I don't believe that guy's holding a Buster sword. There's no way. Look at Cloud. Even if he was made out of titanium, or like Colossus is made out of, there's no way he's lifting a Buick up over his head and smashing Sephiroth. It's just the concept of the games were cool, and I guess it's cool that they're half demons and stuff, but in terms of the aesthetics.
The abilities and stuff were cool, but I kind of agree. I think they tried to make the characters, at least especially Dante, too cool in that regard. But
Yeah.
plus you can never really tell, except for his abilities, that he is demon looking at him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which I guess is kind of the thing.
I guess it would go both ways. Which one had the dominant traits?
Right.
It would be interesting to
Exactly.
look at those, to have a story that explored that, the dominant traits that could out-human the demon genes, and we breed super soldiers.
What's in D&D? They look part demon, but they
Yeah.
have both traits. Like they're instead of like
Right.
red or
And
dark
it
skin.
depends on
like,
how far and up and down the tree you
Yeah,
go. So there's
like how
some
tainted the
tieflings that
blood
look
is.
more like they can hide their horns under hair, and their skin is like normal color, but they have a tail maybe, so they have to like
Mhm.
wear a cloak.
Yeah,
Can't some of that be like transformation magic too, though?
Could be, but
like changing stuff. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean,
you
Like
could
you
wear
said,
those
like-
elf cloaks that turn you into a pile of rocks, like in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
or like I don't know. I guess the original OG one was Merlin. Merlin was
Yeah,
half
you were
demon.
saying that earlier. I did not know that. I
Yeah.
thought Merlin was
That's
just...
how he has his like abilities. That's
Oh,
how he
was
has
it?
so much magic. He's so powerful. Is that?
Probably why they hated
This
witches
must
so
that
much.
has to have been, and I guess it was, but like way pre-Christian.
Yeah, man. This is like thousands of like years
Yeah,
ago.
because if the Catholic Church was just like, this guy's half demon, like Camelot would have never risen up because they would have been like, burn this motherfucker.
No, I don't think it was one of those things he probably advertised. Like, yeah, my dad's a devil. You know, like no, it's not something you go shouting.
But
from the
he did
rooftops.
magic in general, which was no.
Yeah, they burned witches and shit.
Well, I don't think if it hadn't been King Arthur, I think everybody else would probably have been like try to kill him or something.
True.
Yeah, I mean, but then you have obviously another popular one, Raven, half demon, half human.
Oh, and from Teen
Teen
Titans.
Titans.
Yeah, from comics. Yeah, DC. Yeah.
Yeah, I made my choice in the type of women I like
Yeah.
when that show came out.
The sexuality jumped out.
Well, it's not even that. It's just her whole aesthetic and attitude. Like, it appeals to me. Like, those are the kind of people I want to hang around. People that don't just like put up with bullshit with a smile on their face because they're trying to be that peacekeeper. Like, that's a coping mechanism that I had for a long time.
Yeah.
And so Raven's out there like, nah, this shit's whack. I'm out.
Fuck your shit, bro. I don't give a
Okay.
fuck.
Okay. Okay.
And
Okay.
one I'm not too familiar with, Ashi from Samurai Jack. You remember that character?
Ashy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
from the fifth season.
I think it was the latest one. Was
Yeah.
it's Aku's.
It's Aku's daughter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Aku's daughter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I never saw the newest season, so that's why I'm kind of referring to you guys.
I
If you guys
thought
saw
he
it.
just shapeshifted into a woman, and it was actually him.
No, because they end up they kill Aku, and then she goes back in time with him, and they get married and have a kid, and then she disappears because he killed Aku in the past, which means she never came about.
Yeah.
And so then he like watches her disappear, and he's all sad and shit.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
why did he fuck Aku's daughter?
Was a
Yikes.
daughter of a human priestess and Aku.
Yeah. You don't help who you fall in love with. He was able to turn around and be like,
Samurai Jack fucked his daughter?
fuck
Fucked
Aku's daughter, yeah.
Yeah, how?
Because she was sent to, she and her like 6 sisters were sent to kill him, and he was able to show her like Aku is evil, like what he's doing is wrong.
He
and, like,
seduced her.
yeah, but he didn't. Alright?
Just
It
showed
wasn't.
her
It wasn't
the
like some
error
Pierce
of his
Brosnan
dad's
BS.
way.
Yeah, and then they became close. They went through a whole bunch of bullshit together.
That's
Combat is
true.
binding.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever watched Demolition Man, but they talk about how the cortex for violence and the cortex for sexual stimulation in the brain are like touching.
Very similar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're both parasympathetic responses.
It's true.
Parasympathetic? Yeah, parasympathetic.
Yeah, that's right. Right?
Yeah, it's parasympathetic.
Yeah. Okay. But I mean,
Because it's not a
I-
constant involuntary.
Yeah. I think that's like also the, I don't know. I feel like these have been more popular lately, especially in the last say 5-10 years.
Yeah, we're about to get B negative in the new Warriors.
Yeah, we've already touched that. This garbage
I
comics.
wish we had.
It is what it is. But another one that I feel has been popular lately is obviously like vampires, but specifically like dampiers.
Yeah, the half and half.
The half and half, like the
My
human
favorite
hybrids.
Of all time is Vampire Hunter D it's a Japanese book series. It's like little novels. I read them translated, and I found out there was some.
What's actual manga, right?
I don't know if it's a manga. I know it's like a novel
they
series,
have a
and they
manga.
make animes of it.
Yeah.
So I think it went book,
Is it a manga?
anime.
I have no idea.
You don't know
But-
about Deep
The first anime was lame, but the second one, Bloodlust, which follows loosely the events of one of the books, Demon Death Chase, is phenomenal. The art direction was fantastic. The amount of different weird creatures that you get to see, and I think that whole universe is amazing. So
They
you
did a
have
pretty good job with them. I've seen the movies. I haven't read any of the books, but I've read up a little bit on them. But it specifically never really states that he is the son of Dracula.
and not in the shows.
It
but
doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't specifically ever say it in the movies or the shows. But it's kind of
It's super hardcore insinuated.
highly hinted at that's why he's so more powerful than all the rest of the creatures of the night. It's because he's the father of the.
Because my dad's the
yeah.
OG, triple OG.
Yeah.
Fucking puss.
Yeah, basically. I always like those movies though. Those are super well done. I feel like, especially the newer one.
Yes.
But I mean, the original one's from what, the 80s? Yeah.
If
Like
If that
85,
way.
84 when I was born. Dated. But yeah, that one original was old school. But then they waited like 20 years to make a new one, I think. And that was the last animated rendition of it, at least I feel like. Yeah. I don't know. But then you got Blade.
True. Oh yeah, I keep
Yeah,
saying that he's
Blade's
half and half. That's
yeah,
right.
half and half.
So his mom got bit while she was pregnant.
It was.
That was a different take
they-
on it,
they-
because normally
well, in
Dompiers
the
is literally
comics-
just from actual sexual intercourse.
Right, and that's the thing I think makes him kind of like a pseudo Dampier, more or less, because he was bit while his mom was already pregnant from a human, but she was bit before she gave birth.
Right. So he got that taint.
Yeah, so it's like he's kind of tainted, but at the same time not. Like it's
Right.
kind of convoluted what his status actually is to some people, but I think most people can agree like he is like a more or less a Dampier, like true and true.
Do they ever explicitly say that Alucard is a Dampier? Like, obviously his mom was
I don't say those.
human.
I don't think they say those words.
They never
but
say,
say
it
that he's half.
specifically, but
He's
yeah,
half.
he's half and half. Human
Yeah.
mother, vampire father, and the vampire.
Well,
you know?
I don't know if they actually ever would sit down and tell, like, because like if a black woman and a white man or whoever, sit down and they have a kid, they never sit the kid down and be like, "You're mulatto." Like, who gives a shit? You're just our kid. Like, you're not gonna sit there and tell
Well,
you exactly
it's
your
different
lot
when
in
it's like
life.
a creature of the fucking night, like a vampire.
Yeah, but she
Sounds
didn't treat
delicious.
Dracula like that. He was just a man that she'd fallen in love with.
Well, no, I'm not really saying them talking to their son like that, but like someone who's like, it's the Dampier or whatever the fuck. Like, it was probably a term that they used in that time.
Maybe.
Hey,
I
Mom.
think of it more like him growing up in that family would be like how Clark Kent grew up. They have to be like, look, you can't just like snatch the throat out of these little kids at school that call you names because you got girl hair.
Yeah, but I don't really see them putting Alucard in like public school either.
True.
You know?
Well, he would outpace them so fast.
Well, that too, but I mean, I'm sure his mom and dad raised him, and they were fucking
She was
both
smart
smart.
as fuck,
Yeah,
yeah.
She was
smart
a
as fuck.
doctor and he was a...
Yeah, he's fucking
It's
Dracula.
not
Got all
like they
that
had
technology.
public school at that point.
Well, that too. They had like the church to teach everybody, I think, back in those days. But yeah,
What I like about those weird half breeds, if you want to call them that, is the fact that there is such a spectrum for them, right? Because you range from like Alucard to like just to Blade. Like Alucard is insanely way more powerful than Blade
Yeah.
is.
but he was also directly Dracula's son.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know, like you don't get more powerful than that much more.
But I'm curious as to how much power Dracula has because he's Dracula versus just because he's really old. Like, how much of it is truly genetic?
I think it's a little bit of both, probably.
There's an old Spanish saying, and you translate it, it says, the devil knows a lot. Or no, the devil knows more because he's old than just because he's the devil. Which is how I feel. I always felt like Dracula was. I don't feel like Dracula genetically has all these powers inherently more than any other vampire. He just
Just
has
a lot
access to them
more.
because he's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
20,000 years old or whatever.
Well, that too. I mean, it never really says how old he is. I mean, in like some lore it tells you, but like in the show, at least on Netflix, it's kind of ambiguous because I mean, there's a whole race of vampires in the world. Obviously, it's been around for, we'll say hundreds of years at the very least. I mean, I imagine it. There's it's embedded in all the different cultures. I mean, you see Japanese, like Scottish, obviously Transylvanian. There was like that dude in Africa, like Asia. Like, who knows how far-reaching it actually spreads? But I mean, he also had a castle that had technology that. Remember, the wife said was
Well, that's
hundreds
in the
of years old
Castlevania
that
series.
we
Like,
lost.
you're
Yeah,
talking about
that's
Bram
just-
Stoker's version, though?
Well, I mean, that's where you get kind of ambiguous with it.
Yeah.
I mean, because Bram Stoker, it like said like 1400s, I think, or something like that, or 1200s.
Well,
That's where he says Dracula originated. That book series
Right,
set in the
right.
late 1800s, early 1800s.
Yeah, mid to late 1800s, I
Yeah,
think.
because they already had steam-powered ships and Webley
Right,
revolvers.
right, exactly, and that was like fairly new in the books, at least for Bram Stoker's books.
Yeah.
Back then, because I think he specifically says it in the books. There were like powered boats now, and we can cross the sea in a matter of days. Yada yada.
Yeah.
Trains. That was a new
Planes and
technology back
automobiles.
then. Yeah, exactly. You know, he had the Gary Oldman, the fucking bomb-ass sunglasses and top hat.
I forgot he was in that. I watched
Yeah,
it the
man.
other day. I watched the original Dracula with Keanu Reeves and
Yeah.
Gary Oldman.
Oh, yeah,
What a fantastic! Like, honestly, that's a really good remake. But that book, people have a hard time reading some like of the older writing because it does get a little dry. But what a
Yep.
fantastic piece of fiction from that era.
Now, has anybody read the sequel?
No, what?
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Apparently, Dracula in the sequel had knocked up Mina before, you know,
They kill him.
the killing. And they had an offspring. I can't remember his name,
It's probably Alucard.
but it's a son. But it's like
It's always a fucking
something
son.
Harker, Quincy Harker. Quincy Harker is the offspring of Dracula and Mina Harker, as opposed to Jonathan.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I haven't read the book, but
He got cucked.
I saw that. Yeah,
At least he got cucked by like a
I was gonna say it's
supernatural-
fucking Dracula, man.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, who
I
can really
got
stand
no
up to
shame
him?
in the game. I got it. Dracula.
Yeah.
I mean,
get it.
Dracula probably has had lifetime spending figuring out the female orgasm, so I'm sure he has a
Well,
better chance.
you
of
have to
it
get
than-
them into bed before you can give them an orgasm. So there's
Well-
that. Also, he can hypnotize people.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's
That's-
Dracula. I mean,
Like,
who can
yeah,
really
it's
stand
not
up
like
to
she
him?
went to a bar and went home with some fucking, death metal lead
She
singer.
might
fucking
be like,
Jody.
hey, this guy's hot, you know? Fucking vampires are all that
Women did not
seduction.
exercise their sexual agency in that day and age, which is unfortunate. Because the clothes alone. The clothes. So you get corsets on, and you got little like dresses that are supposed to accentuate your butt. Like everyone's walking around looking like Mrs. Incredible.
I mean, you're not wrong. Yeah. But in that regard, you guys looked up a couple of, I'll say more obscure, but probably not mainstream, supernatural stuff, monster-wise.
So I found one. I didn't even know it existed. So I read a book series a while ago called Bastion Saturn, and there's a moon called Irajak around Saturn, and I was like, what is that? And there's a folklore to it. So what it is like almost like a cross between a fae like you get from Ireland where they kidnap children,
Yeah.
and like a Wendigo. So it's this weird, creepy Inuit spirit.
Fluffy bear thing.
No, it's more like a weird spider deer looking freak show.
That sounds horrifying.
Yeah, but it kidnaps and eats children that are like abandoned in the woods, which was commonplace back then. At least as far as I can tell, with some tribes, was they won't even name a child until it survives into like adulthood, like
right.
5 or
First
6
few
years old.
years.
so
Yeah,
that way-
yeah, yeah.
Just so they don't get attached.
Yeah, you're like, well, froze to death last night. We got to make a new one.
That's how they
That's a
work
good point.
children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make as many babies as possible because you don't know how many will die.
Yeah. So let me pump out 8 of these things in like a couple of years real quick. Just go ahead and get like a good herd going. Oh, because we're going to lose half of them.
So this creature would like eat the babies?
So it depends, but for the most part, it sounds like what it would do is it would take, it would kidnap children, and then hide them or abandon them like far into the woods, and then they had to like convince it to let them go if they wanted to escape and stuff.
So kind of like a game kind of thing.
Yeah.
Toy
So
with prey.
you've watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, right? Like the face
Yes.
stealer, kind of like that. Like you had to
Okay.
convince him to let him out of the spirit
Yeah,
world
yeah,
because he
yeah.
got trapped.
Hmm.
Something like that.
Interesting. Be kind of like a challenge almost, like, hey, you want to survive?
Yeah, so hold on, I pulled this up. So on Creepy Wiki, so half man, half caribou monster, so kind of like a Wendigo, right?
Yeah.
And then their eyes stay red no matter what they shape shift into. Their real form is just like a human, but their eyes and mouth are sideways,
So it's like,
That's
it'd be
weird.
Yeah.
vertical then? The mouth? Ugh.
like a flounder.
Like the vampires in like Blade 3 where the jaws come down.
Yeah,
It's
weird,
like,
weird shit.
yeah. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Very freaky, actually. What, you said the eyes were too?
Yeah, so everything's like one straight up and down. And so but one of my favorite things about that myth is that they say that you wouldn't really spot it. It's one of those creatures that kind of lives in the corner of your eye. Like when you see something out of the corner of your eye and you look and it's gone, like
Yeah.
that's where it lives, type
Well,
shit.
Kind of makes sense, especially if you can't really cover your eyes up that are like glowing red. You know? Like, okay, you're human, but you're possessed or demon something. Obviously,
Yeah.
let's get the fuck out of here.
So how do they have a description of it if they can't really
Children.
see
So
it?
Yeah.
children can
Remember if
see
they
it, so-
escape? Yeah,
Oh, that's true.
yeah. That's a good point, actually. Yeah, survivor's guilt.
I got Stockholm syndrome, so I decided to stay in the spirit realm.
Yeah, so this weird deer thing, you know. Ugh. What about you?
Nothing.
Well, on the subject of stealing children, I found the Kappa, which is a Japanese folklore cryptid creature. They're like these little kind of fishy frog-looking humanoids
like
with
Koopa
like a divot.
Troopas.
Kinda, yeah. They're like they got like turtle beaks and stuff. So yeah, like Koopa Troopers, but less cute, I guess, cutesy. But they have like a divot in their head that they keep water in as it's like their power source. So if they like,
If they go dry,
if they go dry, they're kind of fucked.
that's kind of weird.
But they live in the water, so
That's a strange
I
weakness.
think I remember reading about that. And there's like the way to trick them is like to get them to bow. Like you're supposed to bow, and then they will bow and
Oh,
spill the
makes
water
sense.
out. And they're
Yeah.
like, no, dang it.
Well, it's a Japanese thing, so it kind of
Yeah.
makes sense. Like
If you're
you know,
polite, you'll kill monsters.
yeah, pretty much. And fucking, they'll try to lure and steal children and eat them. Like they'll lure them to the side of like a lake or a river or something, and then drown them and eat them.
Yup.
Yeah, pretty much. But another way to repel them is farting in their face
Naturally.
naturally.
Yeah.
So like you can bow, pull your pants down, fart in their face, and they'll run.
I feel that'd be really hard for like. I assume this
To
is
do
like
on demand.
feudal Japan also,
Yeah.
with like being proper. Oh, plus you're
Well,
wearing like
farting isn't
kimonos
a
and stuff
thing
too.
that is like, because farting and belching in different cultures are different stuff. Like
Yeah,
in Japan, like slurp your fucking ramen for two reasons. One, it's polite and let the
Yeah.
chef know you like it.
true.
And to mix the flavors. But then also when you're done, you're supposed to be like, you're supposed to burp. So
Yeah.
farting might not be that different.
But in feudal Japan, especially if you have to lift up your,
Well, if
Kimono
you're
and all
being
that.
chased by a goddamn weird little man creature.
I wonder how they found that out though. Because someone
Some
gets
guy
so
like
scared
shit
they
his
may
pants
shit
and
himself.
ran
Yeah.
away.
I don't know. But there was like a painting of it that they painted where it was like this kid and then an adult had like come to save the kid and just farted in the face of the two Kappa.
Poof.
I
It's
wonder
like-
how these stories come to be like cultural, right? Because if somebody came into a bar, like I'm sitting there drinking my sake, I just got done with a duel, and some guy's like, "There's a turtle thing with a bowl on its head tried to kill my kid, and I shit in its mouth." I'd be like, "That is so obviously horseshit. Get the fuck away from me, peasant."
That's kind of like, remember in the beginning I was talking about how it was
supposed to
wound up
scare
being
children.
like a children's like, like the
Yeah.
wear thing. Like, hey, don't go in the woods alone because this fucking, weird fart
But, like,
turtle is going to get you.
But
The
some of them went
imagination.
way past that.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's kind of like, you tell one person something and it gets around the room and it's completely different.
Oh
It,
yeah,
like,
like you're trying
builds
to
up and
tell your
builds
kid
up,
to
yeah.
stay in after the streetlights come on, and then all of
Right.
a sudden you're burning people at the stake in Germany and France because they're vampires.
Yeah, pretty much.
Especially like over the course of like,
Just
some of
gets out of hand.
yeah, some of these are thousands of years old.
And,
know?
So
I mean,
most of
vampires
these-
aren't.
Well, not
I
vampires
found that out.
specifically, but like
Right.
like Japanese. So, the culture's
True,
been around
'cause
for
that forever.
thousands of years. So like these things are like
A
probably
lot
been
of
built up
these
so big.
stories too are just like humans in like grotesque, like they could just be deformed humans that people were like, oh, it's a witch. Oh, it's a little green frog dude who tried to steal my kid, and it's like, those could just be bad people who look ugly as fuck.
Or even simpler than that, it's dark. Shadows play,
Tricks on
game
your
tricks in the
eyes.
eyes. Yeah, like
Yeah.
the lighting, or it might just
Or they
be
were wearing a costume, like in 13th Warrior. Like they thought these
The bear men.
creatures, they
Yeah,
thought
the
these-
Vendor.
the Grendels,
yeah.
were these monsters. They're just like dudes that were high on psychotropic mushrooms, wearing bear skins.
And like it could be pranks too, like people just pulling pranks on people trying to
I kidnapped your kid, murdered him in the forest, got you.
or just revenge
Loser.
plots, like some stupid stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, some of these stories kind of, I think they come from like scaring kids. There's one in South America. It's called the Maboy Tui So it's a
Maboy?
serpent. Maboy Tui. There's a serpent with a parrot's head and human legs. So
Where's the snake part?
it's the body.
The body,
the
the torso
is
and the
snake,
body, yeah.
And then it has two human legs.
So it's only
and
two
the
legs.
Head. Yeah, 2 legs.
Okay, because I was picturing like a
And a
snake
human-
with like 100 leg thing.
No,
That was
no, no,
freaking
no,
Like a
just
cool.
two
centipede?
legs.
Yeah,
Human
I
centipede.
mean, still imagine like
yeah.
imagine 2 human legs. A
Running on a
serpent
snake body.
and a
Wait,
parrot
does it
head.
have human arms too?
No,
Just
Just
a,
like-
literally just legs,
what the? F-
serpent, and parrot.
Those legs are huge.
Yes, yeah.
Jesus.
Well, you
It's
have to
lots.
have like a really strong base if you're gonna support some noodle body
Yeah.
and a parrot head.
So the thing with this thing is it's not fond of humans, and it protects the animals over by the rainforest and the swamp area.
Like a forest guardian.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But it's meant to keep kids away from the forest, and I really do think that's where most of these legends come from. It's just these parents are just adults
Lazy.
are just like, hey, don't go over there because it's this serpent, parrot-headed, walking.
It's got your
thing.
uncle's legs, big ass
Right.
hairy legs on it.
It just, I mean, even just reading about it, I was like, what?
I mean, imagine that something like that running towards you though. Like, does it slither and like push with its hind legs, or does it like run at you like all wimbly?
Wimbledon,
Like, imagine a snake body
jumping
just
from
like
tree
running
to
like
tree,
this.
drinking
Yeah.
milk from a saucer.
And the mind of a child is like really impressionable too. So like if you tell a kid that this thing looks this way, they might see something in the forest and be like, "Oh my god, it's that!"
Funny
and
you
their
bring that up
imagination's
because
like,
that was a huge problem when it came to like describing animals from places. Like, so when they would like people would go to like Africa, and then they would come back and tell those to people that could read and write, so they could like write down books about like what Africa is like. And be like, how would you describe a giraffe, right? So it's got, you know, the neck of a serpent and the body of a camel and the skin of a leopard, and they're gonna draw this weird looking fucking critter. It looks like a goddamn chimera.
Well, especially like you're talking about, like in the rainforest, there's so many different types of animals, like from the like frogs that can literally kill you with poison to like, you know, these fucking 60-foot long anaconda things.
Yeah.
You know, it's shit people never seen before. You know, especially people that write these kind of books and legends, like, you know, like old school white folks from like England that never seen something that bright or colorful before.
True.
You know,
Yeah,
most
that
they've seen
came
is like
from
a
like
bear.
dull ass England, and then
Yeah.
I ended up in the Amazon, like trying to spread, or from Spain. And now I'm trying to spread Catholicism to the Aztecs, and I see a 30-foot snake that's as big around as my thigh. I'd be like, that's a dragon.
Yeah, it's a fucking. Oh, that's a big ass serpent.
honestly,
Holy shit!
like with what he was talking about, it could have been a fucking snake who was like eating a parrot. It had some fucking legs
That's a
sticking out of
solid
its
point.
throat,
Yeah.
and the head's still sticking out of its mouth. And someone saw it and was like,
Yeah.
"Oh shit, that's fucking
Oh,
weird."
it's pooping out my uncle, you know, Leroy, but it's eating a parrot. Ah,
Or
that's a fucking.
like you said, it could have just been dark. Like that situation, it was
Yeah.
dark. They were like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but still, fucking terrifying. You know, seeing a parrot eat like a, because some of those macaws and
Well,
like
nature itself is
They're
just
big,
terrifying, and
yeah.
when you like let your brain get the best of you, and you see like something that doesn't seem natural, you're just like, well, got another fucking monster after us. God damn it.
yeah. Well, especially like because like I feel like back then, people had to find an explanation of something like that because they didn't really have, you know, the knowledge yet
Yeah.
of like, you know,
You had to
science, zoology, all that shit.
You had
know?
to learn how to tell a story so that people didn't have to learn that lesson in blood themselves.
Exactly.
Which I think people really like underestimate or undervalue the role of a storyteller in society even today, which is
True.
unfortunate.
Well, it's because like I feel like a lot of the good stories, you know, things like this have already been told. You know, it's like in pop culture, like you see a lot of repeats, reboots, rehashes, or like soft reboots or whatever you want to call it. Especially now, because people can't come up with original ideas that people really are behind or care about anymore.
But
I'm calling
there's so
bullshit.
many creatures.
There are
Like,
so many
literally,
creatures.
Like,
True, I agree.
brings me to my next creature real quick. Sorry,
Yeah.
but like it's a vampire type, Malaysian vampire thing.
Oh, a lawyer.
A what?
A lawyer.
No, it's called a Penangalin, something.
Penangolin?
Yeah, and appears as a regular woman, but her head during the day, but her head flies off at night, so she can flip, like she can go around terrifying people. But she can go only as far as her intestines stretch out. So like she can go around, but her body stays in one place, and her
Oh.
She's on a
head
body
This
leash.
is
like
A body
limited
leash.
by
Yeah.
how much her intestines can stretch
I
out.
feel like they had a.
You got 30 feet.
And before morning, she has to stuff it all back in through her own neck.
Dude, what if someone was just like flying a kite one day, like one night? It's just like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, some dude's like super high on like ayahuasca and he's just like, this is some heavy shit.
But it's something like that. Like, all these vampires are all the same shit in media nowadays. Whereas, like, this could actually be scary as fuck to see on a screen.
Yeah,
Like,
especially with the technology we have.
yeah.
Even if it's just practical effects. Look how far we've come from like the creature from the Black Lagoon
Oh yeah.
to now. Like if you look at Creature from the Black Lagoon and then you go, was it late 80s, early 90s for The Thing? It was mid 80s.
Yeah, mid 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But those practical effects were insanely scary.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of my favorite scary films of all time.
Yeah. It still holds up pretty good today too, I think.
True.
Like for practical effects.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like like that demon thing was in a Hellboy comic or episode, one of the animated movies.
Well, I
like-
think that was a Japanese one where their heads floated
It was
away.
kinda
There was
like-
no like guts.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yours was Thai, right? You said.
Huh?
Malaysian.
No,
Malaysia.
Yeah.
Close it.
Like, it's crazy because, like, I want to say that I feel like a lot of the horror movies and stuff that we see nowadays, like, they're all based on, like, humans, and there's no departure from, like, just normal humans doing bad shit, or, like, having clown makeup and being stuck in a freaking movie screen or some shit
Yeah.
coming out to you, and it's like, you could get so much more creative with it, like, fucking intestines flying out and they're still in one piece, and it's like, I feel like the one movie I've seen lately that has actually used a kind of interesting creature was, what was that one where it was like the god that had like the weird human arms, and it was like
It's on Netflix, that movie about the Jotun.
the
what
the
the fuck was
ritual.
that?
The Ritual.
Yes,
that's
that's
right.
it.
Yeah, it was a son of Loki. Or
Yeah,
child
it's
of
one of
Loki.
the, like a Jotun offspring of Loki or something like that. Some forest giant thing.
I
There's,
can say that. Creature legit made me uncomfortable. It was
Yeah,
it looked pretty cool.
huge. It had like human arms sticking out of its head, and like you didn't see it until like way after the
Yeah,
movie
no,
was-
damn near the end.
yeah, and it's like, why can't we get more creatures like that? Like The Thing,
Yeah.
where you can see its weird devolvation into like weird frothing pieces and bulging bits and stuff.
Yeah, guts open up, turn into a mouth, and
Yeah.
Have
Bite
you
your
ever
hand
seen-
off.
Have you ever seen Pan's Labyrinth?
Yeah.
Oh my
Amazing
god! Some
movie.
of the creatures. in
Amazing
that-
movie.
Guillermo del Toro hits
Yes.
my weird little creepy boner all the
Yeah.
time with his creatures.
Yeah.
Like I'm glad that he was in charge of the Hellboy series too.
Yeah.
Well, that one in Pan's Labyrinth, the demon that was at the lunch table or dinner
Oh,
table
yeah.
thing.
The blind or the
Yeah,
yeah,
the
or
one that
whatever with
couldn't
the
see.
eye.
Was that
eyes
based
on
off
it.
of anything specific? Because
I-
it was very Baba Yaga esque.
No.
I have to look into that. I'm not sure. I'm sure
So-
a lot of that is based off of actual stuff, like because it was in Portugal or Spain.
Spain
Spain.
during
Yeah.
the,
Then the
World War II.
Yeah, the War II.
Guillermo, however you say his first name.
Del Toro.
No, Guillermo del Toro.
Totoro-san.
Fucking
Is what he
said
got in the
himself
ring.
that guy was based off of white men, white rich men, who see with their hands and they grab what they want, and they have everything, but they never partake of it, and they don't want anyone else to partake of it.
Oh yeah, we were in that
It was
conversation
just a
earlier.
white, yeah, it was just a white dude, like a white rich dude. That's what it was based off of, and he just had the creature design go from there because he's like, oh, they don't see like everyone else does. They see what they want, and they take what they want. So their eyes are in their hands, kind of thing.
And for that reason, I'm out.
So
I mean,
yeah,
he did a good job though. Like all the monsters and creatures in there, are, like hyper detailed and very, either really cool and like soft looking, like the little fairy things, or like terrifying, like the dinner demon guy, the witch white man. Yeah,
I think his name was the Pale Man.
Yeah, Pale
Pale
Man.
Man, something like that.
it
Yeah,
was.
yeah, because I think he's blind, right?
No, he had fucking.
He had eyeballs in his hands.
That's right. Okay.
That's why I said he sees what he wants.
Yeah.
Grabs it.
Well, you were talking about Baba Yaga, right? Len?
Oh yeah, so Baba Yaga's one of my favorites because it's such a strange duality with her. So she, for the most part, is a villain, right? She kidnaps and eats children. She's a witch, right?
And that's
But
in
she's also-
Russian folklore, right?
so Slavic as a whole,
Slavic.
so largely
Whole,
in Russia,
yeah.
but everywhere,
the whole
Czechoslovakia,
region, yeah.
Herzegovina, and Yugoslavia, Elda, yeah. So
Yeah.
that whole region, even I think to a small extent, like the Balkans, and she's the basis for witches flying on brooms. Because in
Yes.
some versions she flies on a broom, and others she flies around in a mortar, and carries a pistol as a weapon. Not a pistol, like a mortar and pestle.
Like a flintlock kind of thing, right?
No, like the part that you use to mash stuff in the mortar.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And then sometimes she will give heroes advice. Like she's like one of those.
Well, it's like in Hellboy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, almost exactly. So that's
Yeah.
a really good basis. So in some tales, like heroes come out to her and they have to like trick her into giving them the way, like not like eating them and doing weird witch shit. But
It's like, don't eat me, and you're going to give me something in return.
but such a wild. I think she has such a wild background because you think about like most folkloric monsters are like very one-dimensional. Like Medusa has snake hair, turns you into stone, is 100% evil.
Yeah.
And then this bitch runs around in a house that runs around on chicken legs. She flies in a mortar and pistol, and sometimes she's like, you got me, you tricked me. All right, here's what you need to go to fight this guy or to do this thing. So I just think that she's really cool and she has like a lot of depth to her. I think a lot of Slavic folklore has some weird. Almost all of their stuff has a duality to it. Like for every villainous dark god or spirit, there is an instant counterpart, like
a
mirror
balance.
image of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like you have like
Yeah.
I cannot remember his name to the life of me, but in American Gods, there is a Slavic god that helps them, and then he has a twin brother who looks exactly the same as him, who is like the good version.
Right.
Actually, I think in the book they're the same person, but it switches personalities.
Right. And multi-personality, yeah.
Yeah.
Schizophrenic kind of shit.
I feel like
Yeah.
that's kind of what they tried to do with Gotham with fucking Joker. They
He's
had,
the
like,
anti-Batman?
Yeah.
The twin. No. They
Oh.
had twins.
Twin Batman.
In the show.
No.
In the
Joker.
show.
Joker. Jerome Valeska and Jeremy Valeska or some shit. But like, they were both the Joker brothers, and they were like their counterparts to each other. And one of them died and was actually like a good guy, and then the other one went crazy and did the whole face shit. And like, I don't know. I feel like they tried to do kind of like that for Gotham. I didn't really like the direction they took with it, but because I think, like you said, Joker is already like an anti-Batman.
Yeah,
like,
that's his whole thing. He
Yeah.
is the mirror reflection to somebody.
Yeah.
But like, so yeah, it just reminded me of that with like the twins being good and bad and shit.
Well, it's like I said earlier, too. I mean, that whole Slavic Russian, has been around for thousands of years.
Thousands of years.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm
That
sure
was the
it
first part of
evolves.
Europe settled. That
Right.
so like the Mediterranean and the Balkans and the Caucasus Mountain areas were like the first. That's like where your Eurasian or Indo-European
Well, I
languages
think it's
come from.
what is the name of the country? In the first Triple X movie, they go there. What?
Belarus, Ukraine.
No, it's like the most haunted country in the world.
I don't know, Transylvania. In the first Triple X.
The first Triple X of Vin Diesel. The very
Pretty
first
sure
one.
it takes place in the Ukraine.
No, it's not the Ukraine. I can't remember the name of it, but either way, regardless, like that whole like Russian border, Eastern Europe area has probably almost more folklore and like ghost stories
Dracula,
and things like that.
all kinds
than-
of crazy
than
stuff.
any part of the world that I can think of, at least. I mean, they've been talking about it for like thousands of years, literally, and it's one of those things where like the stories that come out of there, because it's a dark area of the world.
Yeah,
There's always been like
Very
fighting
harsh.
there, wars there, and things like that probably breed more stories. And too, like you said,
True.
like stuff with blood and death is always going to have more, I guess out of it. As far as like folklore stories, things like that, and people trying to process it, especially like thousands of hundreds
Yeah,
of
but they
thousands
didn't know
of
what
years ago when
PTSD was.
yeah, exactly. The mental issues were displayed as that kind of stuff back then, especially. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, you didn't have schizophrenia. You were possessed. Demons were talking. to
Right,
you.
right. And I feel like that was, kind of the aspect of that kind of thing. You know what I mean? People kind of it come from that more or
think
less.
you can tell a lot about those cultures is through their folklore as well, which obviously is the whole point. But you can just you can see the apparent differences between how Russia views the world versus how the Inuits did, or versus South Americans. South American folklore, there weren't really a whole bunch of monsters that were out there to murder and eat you and whatever. They knew that there were snakes and jaguars and this stuff.
Yeah.
But then you go out, you go up into the north where it's negative 18 degrees, and you're like, my kid disappeared. Well, it was the Ijarak. It had to have been. No goddamn way my kid just froze to death 6 miles away from the house.
Better have another one.
Yep. Good
Yep.
thing I didn't name that son of a bitch. What a waste of time that would have been.
I mean, it's just one of those things too. I mean, people back then used to get murked regularly. I think the age I think was
30s old.
yeah, like no one would have lived at my age back then, at all, ever.
It's strange how that happens too in society, where you go from being 13, I better start popping these kids out, to now if you do it, you're going to jail, motherfucker. Which I do not disagree with, but just for everybody listening, I'm not saying we should be fucking 13-year-old kids. I'm just saying that drastically shifted.
Prague.
Oh my God!
That's
First
it.
of all,
Prague.
if you
Prague
haven't
is-
visited, anybody who listens to this, if you go to Europe, fuck Paris, fuck Berlin, fuck Rome, go to Prague. It is the greatest city. It's dirt cheap. The food is amazing. The culture is awesome. Almost everybody speaks English. It costs you $3 for a 24-hour pass, and that's bus, tram, and subway. It is amazing.
And most haunted city in the world.
I do
That's
not
where it
discount
takes
that.
place at.
Probably
I remember
dark
this, too.
tourist stuff there.
Well, that's where it was
Oh, I'm
shot.
sure.
I don't think that's where it takes place. I am
Well-
99.1 billion% certain
No,
that
it-
movie takes place in Ukraine.
It said Russia when I looked it up.
Oh, okay.
Well, they're Russian terrorists. But
Yes.
we're getting off track. I'm just saying.
You're just wrong, so I want you to admit it, and then we can move on.
No!
He never admits anything, trust
All
me.
right, we'll get into that in a different time. But what I was trying to say is that's where a lot of that folklore that I was talking about comes from.
Well, think about how many people have ruled over that.
Right.
It was,
That's
it
what I'm
was
saying.
part of the
There's always been civil
Austro-Hungarian.
wars. Yeah, exactly.
The Hungarians took over, and then the Austro-Hungarians and the Ottoman for a little while, the Turkish people, and their food really represents that. So you get what's the goulash?
Yeah.
Is a Turkish meal. Then the Hungarians adapted it, and then when they took over that area, the Czechoslovak people took that part. And then you also have bratwurst and kielbasa from Poland, and it's just a crazy cool melting pot. You're being at the center of Central and Eastern Europe.
Well, it's in the kind of in the middle of everything, and I
Yeah.
feel that actually plays a large aspect of it too. Is because, say you have parts of this story from say Russia, and part of this story from say Ireland. What's in the middle? That area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And all these stories kind of meld together, especially over the course of thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
Things get literally lost in translation between this language to another language. Oh,
So
this
you put it
translates to this.
together.
Exactly, and you put your hands together, you come out with this weird, crazy, convoluted folklore thing where you have a lot of the same aspects in this culture as you do this culture. It just might not translate, or they might have added oh well, its head flies off. You know what I mean?
It's
Or
just
it
humans
feeds
being
off of blood.
crazy together.
Yeah, and that's, I don't know, I kind of feel that's what happens, especially there's so many different cultures there. I mean, I feel that's just how it wound up.
I wonder what other. There's got to be some other places that are examples of that, maybe in Southeast Asia, Vietnam, whatever the middle ground would be is between China and Vietnam and Japan, where these weird little middle ground countries are. I bet their folklore is wild.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she found it was Malaysian with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Malaysia, Japan, and I found the Philippines one that was basically Slender Man with a horse head who rapes women and eats babies.
Okay.
I mean, same thing with Pacific Islands. All those different things used to oh well, I'm gonna go from this northern island down to the next one. Might tell a quick story or two while I'm drinking.
Yeah.
The next person travels to another island, and so on and so
Plays
forth.
telephone and eventually.
Exactly. You're playing tag with stories, and you pass on a few aspects, and then you add your own spice to it to try to bulk up the story, make it sound cooler. Well,
Classic.
yeah, exactly. It's well, I'm gonna make it sound even better. But yeah, I mean, and then kind of gets boosted up to what it is when we hear about it, hundreds of thousands of years later. Somebody finally wrote it down.
I think the most consistent And I guess in comparison to others, not wild folklore there is like Roman and Greek mythology. So yeah, there's some far-fetched shit, but for the most part, it's just dudes and gods. And the problems always start when the gods get super horny for some reason.
Yeah.
And they just decide to fuck with us.
I think the reason that mostly stayed kind of the same as it was obviously there's so many stories that have been written down.
True, they actually
about it,
wrote
like-
them. They weren't just verbal.
Like Homer's The Odyssey, like all these different legends have been written down over the years, literally put in stone, carved on like walls and like, you know, all
They were
kinds
also
of
the
things.
dominant culture in those regions for
Yeah, they took over
thousands of years
half the
almost.
world, I think.
how
right?
long did the Roman Empire stand? Like 1,500 years or something ridiculous?
Something like it was like
Maybe it was less than that.
I think like 500 to 700 years or something.
But
like
still a long time.
that. Yeah.
Our clock is ticking, America. You're gonna get your shit together.
Before the gods come back. Yeah, we can do a whole other episode on like just Greek mythology alone and Roman.
Oh,
That would be amazing.
son.
That'll actually be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Actually, we're gonna put that down right now. That's gonna be a future episode. Roman Greek mythology. Yep. The whole.
Well, Roman mythology is basically Greek mythology, unless you wanted to get in like the origins of Rome, like Romulus and Remus, and how they were raised by
Right,
wolves and
Yeah. And we'll also probably do an episode on Norse mythology now. I'm thinking about it.
dope.
That'd be pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody got anything else to add that they want to talk about as far as like folklore goes?
No, because I would really like to talk about Loki, who is my
Specifically
patron
that.
saint,
Yeah.
and
Yes, we know your
Dudes.
gamer tag,
the dude is weird,
but
but he's like good weird.
Who?
Loki.
Oh yeah.
yeah, we'll get into a whole Norse mythology episode eventually. We'll put that in the books right now. Yeah.
Sweet.
As recording. So, but no one else has anything else to add. We're gonna wrap
Yes,
that
sir.
up for this episode. So, I want to thank Andy,
Bye, guys.
Lannon,
Bye.
and Tor for joining us again.
Adios.
Yep. And thank you for joining us as always. If you guys have any comments or likes you'd like to drop, let us know, and we'll address them later. Peace.
You know, man.